You know that moment during the holidays when everything just feels right. The tree's lit, the coffee's hot, and that first bite of sugar cake just melts in your mouth. Yep, that's Dewey's Bakery. Here in Winston-Salem, Dewey's has been baking up holiday magic since 1930. From their classic Moravian cookies to cheese straws, and of course, the holiday cake squares, where you can still get one free every Monday. Right now, it's the season for sweet treats at any of our 3 Triad area locations. In Winston-Salem at Thruway and Renolda Manor, plus one in Greensboro at Friendly Shopping Center. Easy holiday ordering is also available at local.deweys.com. It's also the season for raising sweet dough for your organization. Just contact any Dewey's store for more information on how you can set up your own holiday fundraiser, where 50% of the items sold go immediately back to your organization. Plus, holiday stores are popping up from mid-November all the way until Christmas Eve. In the Triad and beyond, these special holiday shops will assist in raising money for nonprofits, and the locations can be found by visiting deweys.com. So make the holiday special for the ones you love and others with Dewey's Bakery, home of free Cake Square Monday all year round. Dewey's, celebrate every day.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another financial podcast here with Jennifer Johnson, our certified financial planner. She is with 3 Magnolias Financial Advisors here in Winston-Salem. Information on how to reach her, either by email, by phone, are located in the show notes, and we'll give her the opportunity to plug that information as well at the end of the episode. Jennifer, today we are joined by another guest who's going to talk to us as a subject matter expert on something that I think everyone has heard these terms before, but may not, including myself, may not have a full grasp of what they actually mean. How do you set it up? How does it work? And so I'm excited to get into the nitty-gritty details of that as we talk about wills and trusts. Again, everyone says, oh yeah, I need one of those. I think I have one of those.
Right.
I know they exist, but how do they work? And what should I know about it? And so, yeah, I'm excited to learn more about that today.
That's right. I think it's easy to procrastinate on that. And as you know, and some of our listeners might know too, of course, as planners, we try to take someone's whole financial picture into play, and planning for fun things like retiring or sending your kids off to college. But we also have to think about what happens when we pass away. And so that question comes up for us a lot as advisors or sometimes I'll prompt and say, do you have an estate plan? Do you have a will in place? And a lot of times I know I should do that, but I think people are really intimidated, don't know where to start, have a lot of questions. So I know I'm excited to have Mitch Bledsoe here with us. He's an attorney in the same building as us. We're local folks here in the Oakwood building, right off Stratford Road in Winston-Salem. And Mitch is with Robinson Lawing, and Mitch has an expertise in estate planning. So we're excited. We're going to throw some questions at him that I get a lot, and Adam's going to this is your chance for some free legal advice, I guess.
Yes.
We'll throw some of that maybe at Mitch too. But Mitch, do you want to start with a brief introduction?
Well, thanks for having me. As Jennifer said, I'm an attorney here in Winston-Salem at Robinson and Lawing. My specialties kind of include what's called transactional work, as well as a large share of estate planning, both trusts and wills, and just estate administration as well. Happy to answer some questions, because I can imagine some that are going to be coming as I get them, if not daily, weekly for sure. And especially the kind of the money question of do I need a trust? What is a trust? Trust versus will. That's a nearly daily conversation that I have with people. I had it today. I was at a meeting this morning and a woman asked me about it. These questions exist, and happy to maybe provide some pathways and roadmaps for people that might be having these same questions.
Yeah,
Jennifer, let me start real quick, because maybe it's a good place to ask first before we get into our questions. What is the most common question that you get?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I will get calendar invite for just a simple estate planning meeting, and almost guaranteed, the first question out of their mouth is, "I need a trust. I read about it online. Everyone says I need a trust." That is the number one question, and I always followed up with, "What do you have in place now?" And it's almost always nothing, which is
That's
fine.
right.
Which is totally fine, but it is people that don't have a plan in place coming in thinking they need a trust, or just having a question about what a trust is. With the advancements of Google and AI and all of those things, these questions get
Sure.
thrown out there, and sometimes they're not getting the best advice, or really advice that's not tailored to them.
Right.
In typical attorney fashion, the answer to every question is it depends. So that kind of kicks off the question of what is a trust? Do I need one? And the answer is always it depends. Let's talk about what we have.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll share if it's okay what prompted me to reach out to Mitch, which is kind of an interesting story that was in the news lately. It was in I read a trade magazine called Wealth Management, and of course we probably all heard that Diane Keaton, the legendary actress, passed away recently, and apparently she was a dog lover. She had a golden retriever. I believe his name was Reggie, and she left $5 million reportedly. This is, I guess, allegedly, because we don't. One of the things about trust is you may not know this publicly, right, Mitch? And you'll answer that better than me, but there's rumors swirling around that she left Reggie $5 million. And of course, I know that you can't leave a dog money. So it probably was in some sort of trust with a trustee in charge of it. But it reminded me of this question that I get a lot. And I have to bring in somebody like Mitch to really answer that if you need a trust. But if you want to leave money to your beloved dog, Mitch, you do need a trust. Am I right in that?
That is correct. So pet trust are kind of a hot topic because, to be honest, I mean it's taught in law school. It's an amusing topic. It's people
Right.
love their pets. I love my pets. I've got
Yeah.
two dogs. They do not have trust right now. But
Right.
the best way to take care of a pet long term would potentially be a pet trust. Now, could that be done in other forms? Yes. And have I done a pet trust? Yes. Um,
You're not allowed to say who, probably
not
not
allowed
Diane
to say
Keaton,
who.
I'm guessing.
And it was not $5 million, but someone was an animal lover, no kids, never married. In all essence, these animals were her pets or were her kids,
Yeah, of
and they needed to be
course.
taken care of in her mind, and we got them taken care of. But you hit the nail on the head as far as having a trustee that you trust that's willing to serve and can provide the level of care that you anticipate your animal needing long term. Now, are there a ton of pet trust out there? No. Um, but they exist, and they're a thing, and it's one of the only legal instruments to do what Diane is trying to do by taking care of her dog. Now, does a dog need $5 million? I'm not here to judge, but I can make sure that it's taken
Right.
care of.
Right. Reggie apparently had to become accustomed to a certain lifestyle, I guess. No, I have encountered it more with what you might call special needs trusts, where maybe you have a child with Downs, for example, that with the parents taking care of that, even adult child, have to plan for what happens when I'm not around to help with the kids. But it might be good to start. I got us just, on this kick with pet trust because I thought that was just such an interesting. And I have other examples that we can share too that people might find interesting, but it may be good to say, okay, what is it? Because I'm guessing, like you said, people come in asking for a trust, but we really don't know what it is. So is there a like um, easy, how would you answer that question for the layman who has no
Um,
idea?
so a trust is a legal document where one person is going to hold and manage property for someone else's benefit under written instructions.
Or Reggie the dog, I'm
Or
assuming.
Reggie the dog.
Right.
Another way to think of it is a rule book tied to a pot of assets,
Okay.
and a referee is going to be there to enforce the rules.
Okay. Okay. Good
So
analogy.
you kind of touched on the different types of trust, and there's three kind of big players in this. There's going to be what's called a revocable living trust. Some people call them living trust or a family trust. There's an irrevocable trust, and then one that we see a fair amount of is that special needs trust. A revocable trust means it can be revoked, it can be changed. Often the person that creates the trust is serving as that initial trustee. Um, and it really helps with incapacity planning, probate avoidance. But one of the big things, the number one question that I get, follow-up question after trust is, oh, I need a trust to protect my assets. A revocable trust doesn't do the level of protection that people think it does. It can still be reached by creditors. There's typically still some spendthrift worries that you need to be worried about. And the big thing is Medicare planning. People come in saying, I want to prepare for Medicaid, and I need a trust. And the only way to do that is in a revocable trust, which makes it harder to change. It's really used for asset protection only and government benefit planning. But the big thing on that one is you are essentially locking away your assets, and you do not have access to them other than this referee or the trustee. And that becomes less desirable for a lot of people, thinking that I can outsmart the system by planning for government benefits while still having access to my money. The government is smart. They have found out ways around that, and they will not let you have your cake and eat it too. So the only way to do that is in a irrevocable trust. The special needs trust is something that we do a lot of, and it's exactly what you think. Typically, sometimes they're called third-party special needs trusts, but an example would be if I had a disabled daughter. I've seen it with just family friends. Put a pool of money aside. It is set up for that person's support, maintenance, and health, and it's used to supplement whatever they receive from the government. And it's the best way to provide a higher level of living that someone that is strictly relying on government benefits can utilize. So those are the kind of the three big ones of what types of trust there are: revocable, irrevocable, and that special needs trust.
Okay. So what are the reasons, and Adam, I don't know, you may have some questions too, but what are the reasons someone might need a trust, I guess? So go through like some of the more common ones. I guess there could be an infinite amount of reasons, but what do you know if you say, okay, this is me, this is a sign that I might need a trust as part of my planning?
Other than a pet.
Other
than a
than
pet.
your beloved pet, yeah.
So number one is what I see most applicable is a blended family.
Okay.
You're on your first, second, third, fourth spouse. You have children across those marriages, and while you want to protect your current spouse in the event that you pass, you also want to protect your kids. And your wife at the time might not share the same affinity. So it is a great way to provide some form of income, some form of inheritance, both to your spouse and to your children from previous marriages. Another really important one, kind of where a trust adds value, is a spendthrift or an immature heir. This one happens a lot where people say, I don't want, if I pass, my child's 19, I don't want to trust them with a large sum of money at 19. And I sympathize with that. If I was handed a bag of money at 19, different decisions would be made then than now. So it's a way to kind of structure payments over timing thresholds. You get a percentage at 25, you get the rest at 30, or you get a percentage at 35, so on and so forth. We can structure it that way to cut down on the beneficiary's ability to just rifle through the money.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a
So
question?
controlling it beyond the grave in that case is one way
Yeah.
to go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask a follow-up question to when you were explaining the different kinds of trust. What would be the reasons why somebody would want a revocable trust?
Yeah, that's a good question because it doesn't change much, right? Like you're still the legal owner. It doesn't
You're still
protect
the
your
legal
asset.
owner.
Why do you do that? That's a great question.
The revocable trust is is beneficial if you have multiple properties across multiple states. That way, you're not having to
Okay.
open probate in each state for that asset. If you're wanting privacy, a trust is not going to be part of the probate file. People can't look up what your trust is. For example, we were just talking about Diane Keaton's $5 million pet trust. That's all speculation. It might not be that, but we'll never know unless someone produces the document and that doesn't benefit them. So the a revocable trust allows you to make changes, allows you to take ownership, um, and it keeps that trust out of probate, and the provides a somewhat seamless management during incapacity. Um, and the other big thing, the number one thing that people where a trust adds value, and it's almost always going to be a revocable trust, is a high net worth individual. In North Carolina, and this kind of is the big deciding factor on if you need a trust, to be honest with you, is in North Carolina, there's no estate tax. Any kind of tax worries that people have, because that's the number one concern, is I want to protect my assets and I'm worried about taxes. The government's caught on with this new big beautiful bill. That estate tax number has jumped to 15 million. When trust became really popular, say 20 years ago, that number was at 5. So a lot more people qualified and could take advantage of it. Now with it being $15 million, that's the conversation that I have with people of, do you own a house outside of the state? No. Do you have $15 million either in a bank account or an investment account? No. Then, to be honest with you, we can get all of what you want to get accomplished done through a probated will. Now, with some people want a revocable will because they want to pull they want the control aspect and they want it for that blended family, or they don't trust who might receive that money and they want the privacy aspect coupled with a potential to be a high net worth individual.
What are the things that so obviously we talked about why people might do a trust. And a trust is a piece of an estate plan, right? So like if you're thinking about all the pieces, it's obviously a great idea to get good advice, I think, around that. I don't think this is a do-it-yourself situation, in my opinion. I think you need good people helping you with that. Because people come in, as you say, and I think it's become more popular maybe with Google searches and whatnot, come in saying, I need a trust, right? And I think there's a lot of attorneys out there. What I appreciate about you and the folks at Robinson Long is they'll say, well, are you sure? Let's talk about, your situation and make sure. Otherwise we're doing some legal work and charging fees that might not really be necessary. Because what are the drawbacks, I guess, of doing a trust? I mean, what are the reasons you might say, are you sure you want to do that? Tell me your thoughts on that.
Absolutely, and that's another talking point I have with everyone as well, is trusts are great if they're administered correctly. They're a complicated 15
Yeah.
page document that is full of legalese. You have to fund the trust correctly. You have to title things into the trust, your
Yeah.
property. You have to make sure it's all of your bank accounts name the trust as the beneficiary. And a failure to do any of those results in you having to go to probate anyway through what's called a pour over will to properly title that trust or that item that was maybe forgotten about or just missed into the trust. So trusts are great for, just to be frank, a type A person that is going to handle the administration of it correctly, and the person that's going to handle it after you pass being able to handle it properly, naming someone that is able to administer the trust correctly. So that's the number one pitfall, is they're tough to administer properly. They're tough to track, and because that they don't have to be probated, I see a lot more lost trust than I see a lost will. And
Oh,
if you lose a trust, most of the time it can't be found again. And if it is found, it's an unexecuted copy. And at worst, if you didn't do the rest of your estate plan correctly, you are potentially facing an intestate situation where you might be giving large sums of money to a family member you had no intention of them receiving an inheritance, or shortchanging your spouse completely. They have some spousal rights, but it's significantly limited over what you may have had in a trust. Um, so
And
that's
by
the
lost trust,
biggest
you mean like actually losing the document itself, right,
losing
Mitch?
the
Like,
document.
which I've had that come up, especially as time passes. Somebody brings in a statement that says we own this investment account, this brokerage account, if you will, in the name of a trust, and nobody quite knows where the document itself is that spells out the rules. Or I've had the flip side, like what you just alluded to. Somebody created a trust for them. You had a revocable trust document. It's the most common. And in my case, a lot of times it's a new client coming in, or a new prospective client will come in with all their stuff, and they'll bring their estate documents, and I'll see this trust and then look at all their actual assets and realize there's nothing titled in the name of that trust. So you're like, wow, you just spent at least hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, doing this work, and it's not doing you any good. It may even make things worse, if I hear you correctly.
Absolutely. You're paying a premium for a trust for an attorney to draft a document that then puts the onus on you to administer versus just drafting a will and putting that in a safe place. And when it comes time to administer your estate, there are safeguards in place through the court system, through the clerk's office, to keep you on track on administering the estate properly. And the other pitfall, it's less of a pitfall against trust and more of a pro in the will category, is everyone says they want to avoid probate. I want to avoid probate. I want to avoid probate. I get it. It's a negative word. North Carolina system is pretty streamlined. It's fairly cost effective if you compare it to other states. But honestly, a large majority of probated assets can be completely avoided probate if you just make sure that beneficiaries are labeled correctly. You want half to go to your kids and half to go to your surviving spouse, make a call to Fidelity, make a call to your financial planner, get those beneficiaries correct. At the moment that you pass, that's not a probate asset. All they really need is your death certificate, and they're cutting checks to the people that you've named or transferring into an account. So this big estate that we're worried about probating is being whittled away by just natural processes that you might have with your banking institutions and financial institutions. Um, and that's a lot easier to do than worry about a 15-page document that you don't know every other word in.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying then, Mitch, is not a trust isn't for everyone.
A trust is not for everyone, and I would say it's the number is slim when it is beneficial to someone living in the state of North Carolina. Now, other states trusts are more preferred. There's better framework for them, and they're encouraged. North Carolina is not that way. We have a streamlined probate process that's fairly regulated, and we can avoid a lot of the probate assets by just naming beneficiaries correctly. So yeah, to answer your question, no, a trust is not for everyone, and I talk people out of them more than I talk people into them.
Well, that's not good for business, Mitch, really. I mean, you could really run up a lot more fees if you just let people do those complicated trusts. And it
Well,
might
it's
be
funny you
helpful
say that
for
because
people.
I tell people all the time when they ask a trust, and I said that was a really creative way for attorneys 20 years ago to charge 2x for their services. And while I'd love to charge a 2x for your service, you don't need it. And you talked about being straightforward. That's as straightforward as I can get.
That's
I'd
right.
love to complicate your life and charge a 2x for it, but that just doesn't sit right with most people and doesn't sit right with me.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that because it also complicates my life as their advisor when you create one that we don't need, because they can get a little hairy. It might be good too for people that don't know probate. and you can probably explain this better, but probate is that process of opening and processing an estate, right? So things that are controlled by your will, right? Things that don't have a beneficiary on them, like your IRA or 401k, or you don't own them by that trust, right? It's stuff that all my things, my car, if it's just owned by me, for example, maybe it's some stock or something that I own. If it's not labeled as if it would go directly to a person. That's the court-based process, right? Where we go through the will to decide who gets it, right?
Exactly. Um, it's exactly what you just talked about. A will is going to handle kind of two big buckets, and then we can expand from that if needed. We can include real estate in there, but it's tangible personal property, the things you can touch, the things that you don't have a title to. And then what's called residue, and that's kind of everything else, is the two big questions I have on what are we going to do with these two things. I think a lot of people, I've gotten this question of, well, who reads the will? And we're going through room by room of grandma's grandfather clock is listed in the will to go to Susie.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. I don't make it that complicated. Truly, I draft you a document with a provision in there where if you want to list things out, have at it. It's incorporated by reference. Keep it with that document. And if you want the grandfather clock to go to Susie, write it down. It's going to be part of your will. But I'm not going to go through and inventory your house because it doesn't.
All the spoons and whatnot.
Yeah, because the
True.
likelihood that you have that 20 years down the road, 50 years down the road is limited. And now we're looking for something that might not be there. And you
Yeah.
could just scratch off something that you sold. You know you're going to know your personal property better than I ever will.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the probate process. It is truly putting a number on that, filing that with the court in an accounting, and then dividing it per the terms of the will. If 25% is to go to Susie, you either sell that out or you work with the executor and you administer. You give out items in the house that until they reach a certain point, and you can get into a mathematical equation on the value of certain things. But it is truly a snapshot of everything you own that doesn't have a beneficiary at the time that you pass. And then your will dictates usually percentages. Or if you have what's called a sweetheart will, where my spouse gets everything, it goes straight to your spouse. But it's a process um, to administer your estate and make sure that your terms of your will are followed, with the things that you own at the time that you pass.
I want to take a quick break from this show to do two things. One, we'll say thank you for listening and supporting the Triad Podcast Network. Just listening to this episode is appreciated. Second, I want to ask that you support a local business that supports us as a presenting partner, a real estate company we trust, the Ginther Group, located in Winston-Salem. The housing market is moving fast. You need someone you can rely on to assess your situation, read the data and trends, and steer you in the right direction. Interest rates, inventory, new construction, there are so many factors that impact our local market. Don't buy into the national internet headlines. Get the information from the folks right here in our neighborhood. Contact Blake Ginther and the Ginther Group today. Whether you're buying or selling, have cash or not, or if your home isn't in the ideal condition for selling, chances are they have a solution for you. Call 336-283-8689 or visit theginthergroup.com. Buying, selling, investing, or just learning, whatever you need. Start now, and like me, you can become a Ginther Group client for life.
You bring up an interesting point there I really had never thought about. Obviously, reasons people, I think, want to avoid probate are part in the publicity of it, right? Because it is filed with the courts, so certain information's out there for anybody who wants to look it up, right? So I know some people don't like that, but also I think, to your point, it also holds people accountable. It holds your executor accountable for doing, what was listed in your will. Whereas I guess what we're saying with the trust is because of the privacy of that, you might have to dig a little deeper and maybe bring some legal action, I'm assuming, if you're a beneficiary of a trust that's not, where the trust provisions aren't being followed by a trustee. Is that fair to say?
Going to be fair to say for both trust and wills, your executor
Okay.
and your trustee have a fiduciary duty to the settler of the trust or the decedent, the person that passed with a will. Um, and they can be removed for failure to follow, what your will says, or there's statutory rules that they have, providing accountings, things like that. I'll say it's harder to remove a trustee
Okay.
because that requires other people to know what the document says.
Right. All right.
Um,
Just one of the reasons. And it might be good to tell people like what the trustees' responsibilities and kind of what to think about when you're choosing. Because if you're going to do a trust, you got to figure out who the trustees going to be. And like, I think one of the more common ones is for like minor kids. For like you think about, okay, if me and my husband were both wiped out, and part of my planning is a trust for them while they're young, who's going to be that trustee. And also, Oprah has set aside $30 million for her dogs, apparently. So I'd be very interested in what that trustee gets and what their responsibilities are. But that might be good for people to know what to be thinking about and what that trustee does.
so the big term when it comes to trustee is the word discretion. Almost every trust gives the trustee discretion, for the example for a pet. It gives them the discretion to either write a check or cover some charge, and that's true with minor trust as well. And it's truly up to the discretion of what that person needs for their support, care, maintenance. Those are the kind of the big three things that they have to keep in mind. And included in that is if I've got $30,000 that is supposed to last 30 years, and you come
Mhm.
asking for a car and I'm your trustee, yeah, okay. I see a world where a car makes sense. And then, but you ask for a Mercedes Benz. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't benefit you. That doesn't provide you care, support, and maintenance for 30 years that I'm supposed to maximize this trust. Whereas a Honda Accord could.
Right.
Um, so the trustee's job is to provide for that beneficiary per the terms of the trust. Now that might be cut a check for $25,000 at age 25, and in 5-year intervals after that. That's a simple trustee job. Where things get complicated for a trustee and is that determination of what's best for this beneficiary if it's truly a discretionary trust. And those are
Mm-hmm.
things that we can control with how we draft it. The standard answer is typically a trustee, a discretionary trust. But that calls into question, who do you trust to make these decisions? Who has the skill set? Because it is a skill set. Um, is it a close family member that is good with money and good with organization and just good making decisions? Or are we going to have to rely on a third party, either corporate trustee or your attorney to do so? And while they are great, and we do it frequently for people, we have the infrastructure to do it and to do it efficiently. You got to pay them. Nobody's doing that for free.
Right.
And that typically comes at a 1.5%
Okay.
of what they're managing. So you got to think about if I'm giving $30,000, that gets eaten up quick versus I've got $30 million. I'm okay with that getting bled off a little bit with it being managed properly.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure Oprah's dogs have become accustomed to a certain lifestyle. So it's probably
absolutely,
what's going to be asked of that trustee, right, to take care of them.
absolutely.
Jennifer, what are the ways that people fund a trust? Is it just like funding a retirement account? How is it different? How is it similar?
Well, a couple things. I think Mitch alluded to it there. In some cases, it may be that trust is the beneficiary, so there's no money in there now. But when you pass away, money would go into that trust, maybe, or transfer into that trust, and because you're worried about what would happen when you're not here, or if it's very common, like I mentioned, somebody has created a revocable trust to control assets now. People come in with that document and we can help them actually retitle the account if it's an account maybe I own on my own. But I go to Mitch and we decide, yeah, she's got enough complexity there where a trust makes sense. I would then take that account, maybe it's full of stocks and bonds and cash and CDs and whatnot, and change that ownership, that title from me as Jennifer Johnson to the revocable trust, and Mitch would give me a very specific title. I'm sure that he would want listed on that, and we would have to include as part of that account opening documents certain parts of that trust, at least where like you would show who the trustee is so they know who should be making decisions around that account. Does that answer your question there, Adam, too? I mean, I think it's largely a paperwork process to make sure things are set up properly, and it's a step often missed, and I think that's one reason I think it's important for us as financial professionals to partner with legal professionals, accountants, because a lot of times the client doesn't understand that, right? And I think certain folks do a good job of saying, okay, here's now we've done the legal documents, here's what you need to do. Or if it's somebody that we know closely, he may say to me, Jennifer, make the beneficiary X or retitle this account in the name of this trust, and then we would do the work from there.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, as far as the attorney side, we have meetings all the time where it's the client and the financial planner on, all right, here's the plan. We're switching over to a trust. And that way everyone's on the same page. All right, this is what it's going to be called. This is the type of trust. And then that financial planner takes and runs with it and does the paperwork as far as what needs to be done for those accounts. A big pitfall that I see in a conversation I have outside of that, because I trust almost every financial planner that sits in that meeting, but there's some onus on the client of, okay, you want your property to be in there? That's a whole nother step.
Yeah.
We have to deed that over. We have to file that with the Register of Deeds. If your house is mortgaged, we have to check with your mortgage company to see if that's even a possibility, because some mortgage companies aren't going to let that happen. And that's a big miss that I see. And that's probably the biggest miss is, oh, well, we completely forgot this property, or grandma started a trust, but she forgot this vacant lot in Florida and it's
Yeah.
not part of it. Now we're having to go through alternative measures to either get it in the trust if she's still alive and capable of doing it, or if she's passed, we're trying to rope something in that should have been done from the get-go.
Yeah. What about cars? Do you usually recommend Mitch people retitle cars?
I don't.
Yeah.
The lifespan of a car just isn't
Yeah.
worth the trouble. If they come in and they've had a car for 5 years, why are you going to go title a car? Maybe it lasts 10 more, but the chances that you own that particular car,
Yeah. It's not
so
worth it.
it's just not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's
So
the one item that we have to probate, that's quick. KBB valuation, throw it into the trust. Those are much easier to administer than having to go down to DMV and retitle it. And to be honest
I
with
can
you,
see
and to put it straight, usually at that point you've passed and you're saving yourself a DMV trip. Somebody else is having to go on your behalf. So it can be your
True.
parting gift as a trip to the DMV for a family member.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Mitch, we'll end with this. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you do get asked by people that you think we left out?
No. Pretty much the big questions y'all ask are the questions that I get. But I'll kind of go over my spiel after I answer those questions, and I recommend it to everyone because you really don't know how valuable it is until you have to go through it with a loved one that passed without a will, and you're having to administer an estate intestate. But get all your documents in place, and when I mean all the documents, I mean either a trust or a will. will's going to be more applicable for everyone. We can include provisions in there for if your kids are young. We include it in a will. You don't need the trust still, but get a power of attorney. Get a healthcare power of attorney. Getting living will, because everyone is going to experience a moment of incapacity. Now, everyone can hope that that period is very, very short, right at the end, but sometimes that period lasts for years, months,
Mm.
decades. And if you don't have these documents in place that allow someone to step in and cut a check when it needs to be cut, make sure your mortgage is paid up, handle your business assets if you've got those, you are opening your family up to not only a hectic situation with your own health and incapacity, but now they have to figure out how to take care of you on this other side of the world, as far as financial healthcare decisions. You can answer a lot of questions and make that a lot easier for your family members if you got the documents in place. So my whole package, I call it my estate planning package. You're going to get a will, you're going to get a power of attorney, you're going to get a healthcare power of attorney, you've got to live in will, and you can go to sleep at night knowing that if the worst happens, you're protected. And not only that, but your family has a playbook in place to take care of your assets per your wishes.
So, Mitch, if people want to come and ask you some of these questions about their own situation, thank you. First of all, thank you for your time and your
Absolutely.
generous advice here on this show, and for not billing us for your time today. But how can people find you, reach your office if they want to talk about their own situation?
Absolutely. Just give us a call at the office. Our office telephone number is going to be 336-631-8500. You can go online to robinsonlawing.com and put in a web inquiry. That way you'll get directed to us. Or shoot me an email. My email, I'm happy to give it out, is mbledsoe, BLEDSOE, at robinsonlawing.com. Come on in for a consultation. We'll see what you got, see what you need, and get you taken care of. Consultation is going to be free. And off the billable note comment, I typically charge everybody a flat fee for everything. I think there's a comfort in knowing exactly what you're going to pay and exactly what you're going to get versus me billing you point two for an email. I know what it's going to cost, and I can charge that to you in a flat fee, and you don't have to worry about it until you come in. So we'll get you taken care of, and we'll make it as easy as we can for you.
All right. And in the spirit of convenience, in the same building is where you can find Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Jennifer, remind the folks where they can find your office as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. We're on the fourth floor. What do you guys, second floor?
We're second floor.
Is that right? So you can come visit us both. Our number here, if you're want to visit me too, is 701-1600 336 area code, because we're local too. I would encourage people to take Mitch up on that offer. I know a lot of times people procrastinate on their estate planning. It's not fun at all to think about, I think, but really important and can save a lot of heartache and headaches later on. So I hope people will do that and put together a team of people that can create your best possible plan going forward. We'd love to be a part of that if we can, and just make sure all the steps are put in place. Apparently, Michael Jackson left $2 million to his chimpanzee Bubbles, but the money was never received, and I'm sure there was a lot of reasons in that estate. But make sure everything is actually put in motion, as it should be. So reach out to one or both of us.
Okay. Well, yeah, make sure that your family members and your pets, even your chimpanzee
Your
is
chimpanzees,
taken care of
yeah.
in the right way. So,
They look like
Jennifer.
people, but they're not. Yeah, you can't leave them money directly. That
That's
would be
correct.
out of
Can't trust
trust,
him.
right?
Yeah.
So maybe, talk to Mitch. I don't know. I don't know about
He's got
that.
the answers. He's got
He
the
knows what
answers.
to do for your chimpanzees. So we'll leave that to you.
We found your new slogan, Mitch. We found your new slogan for your business.
Right. You put that on a billboard.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, guys.
All right, Jennifer, Mitch, thank you both so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks,
Adam.
Adam.
Securities offered through Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors, located at 110 Oakwood Drive, Suite 480, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27103. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Private Client Services are not affiliated. Private Client Services is under separate ownership from any other named entity. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. All economic and performance information is historical and not indicative of future results. The market indices discussed are unmanaged. Additional risks are associated with international investing, such as currency fluctuations, political and economic stability, and differences in accounting standards. The views depicted in this material are for information purposes only, and not necessarily those of Private Client Services. They should not be considered specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Neither Private Client Services nor any of its representatives may give legal or tax advice.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.